Hello, Joseph. It's
Hi.
Catherine. It's Catherine McQuaid, and it's lovely to have you with us, Joseph. You are the author of Reading Virtual Minds. You are also, I think, at least half of the brains that invented ET. And in our last conversation, you reminded me how ET came about because you were actually sitting on, you've got some background noise if you hear
Yep.
that.
Hang on a second. I forgot to
Okay,
shut that off.
okay. You were reminding us how ET came about because you realized that people learned in different modalities. And so you adapted through a PC. In those days, it wasn't a PC, but very limited computing power in order for the content to be dynamically responsive to the learner. And from then, um, you had somebody observe that this was marketing. In other words, how people make choices. I think you called it convincer strategies and decision strategies. So those are very analogous to how we learn, if
Yes.
I'm getting that correctly.
Yep.
Okay. So just to remind those of us who are joining, your mic might just be a bit hot, a bit high. We're getting a bit of feedback there, Joseph. I'm sorry. While you're dealing with that, I thought I would ask us to go back one step because in our last conversation, you, I think, reminded us that ET, unlike other marketing analysis, data tracking kinds of platforms that we all love in the marketing business, ET is different. It's different because of the inputs and it's different because of the outputs. So if we come to inputs, I think you have said that it is platform neutral. In other words, from the input point of view, um, that ET can recognize me and it's not specific to the device I'm on. I could be using my sister's mobile phone. I could be on Skype. I could be on a kiosk in the airport and it would know me. So that's the input side. And then the other part is the how ET is different from the marketing data analytics stuff that we have today is different because it does not use our historic data. It doesn't look at what we've looked at or how many clicks we've done or whether we're different behaviors on one channel versus another, and then use algorithms in order to predict or to use probability calculations as to what I'm going to do now. It's a dynamic, context-specific environment. So let's pick up from our last conversation where you were explaining about convincer strategies and decision strategies relative to a client that you first worked with. I think this may be your first client, which was a business to business manufacturing piece of equipment in packaging.
Yep.
So remind us, you gave an example of how they had sent out a mailer. You were sitting with them at their computer watching the inputs come across, and you were able to identify that there was a woman who was on their site, your client's site at that point in time, but there was also somebody with her, a younger woman, you were able to determine who was an influencer around that decision. Could you explain to us how that fits into the outputs now, which are different than predictive analytics that everybody else is familiar with? How is ET different?
It's it's green. That's its major difference. Just kidding, folks. Couple of things. ET will not recognize you as Catherine. We don't actually allow it to do that. what it will recognize is that it's seen a lot of this type of activity or these inputs before. So it will know that what it has seen before, it is seeing again, but it will not say, oh, this is Catherine. Okay? So we do what we call individualization, not personifying. We do not, recognize Catherine as Catherine, Joseph as Joseph. We recognize the person I'm interacting with now, they're very similar to somebody I saw before. And that's an important point, because we do not use historical tracking, because the way the human brain works is every time somebody interacts with you, even if it's your sister, even if it's your partner in life, they basically interact, they come up to you and they go, the brain goes, okay, I recognize this individual because they match everything I've ever known about Catherine. There's a couple of things different. Maybe, as Dickens would say, you had a bad piece of beef the night before. But essentially, we reconstruct on the moment. We take everything we've learned and put it into the moment. Yep, that's Catherine. That's Joseph. ET does the same thing. It doesn't keep historical data in the sense of cookies on a web page or anything like that. What it does is, I've seen all this before. Where have I seen it before? I saw it over here. Does it still work here? It does. Okay. So same type of thing. That now gets us into decision and convincer strategies. A convincer strategy is what I need to do to convince you to do something. Okay? So if you are, let's say you are convinced you want to buy a car. And let's say you're convinced by seeing a very specific type of car with a very specific type of dashboard illumination or something. So I know that to convince you, I need to show you that. That's your convincer strategy. You are convinced when you see this and this and this and this. A decision strategy is a little bit different, because the convincer strategy is what I have to do. The decision strategy is what you have to do to convince yourself to make a decision. Now, this may never have happened to you, but maybe somebody they are convinced that something is good or true or real, but they haven't made a decision about it yet. For example, right now, the United States is going through one heck of an interesting political season. And I'm going to be political. Everybody knows Donald Trump is different. How's that? Being tame politically. He's not your standard politician. Everybody is convinced of that. Not everybody's decided they want to vote for him. Even though they may be convinced he's an interesting person, they haven't decided. Same thing with Hillary Clinton. Same thing with, I forget who the independent candidate is. So I may be wanting to convince you. I may be giving you information, sharing stuff with you. And I watch how you respond to it, because that tells me how you're deciding. I showed you the visual of the car dashboard, and you went, okay, that's nice. I like that. And I say to myself, she's making a decision based on seeing that dashboard. I wonder if I showed her how the radio works. And you go, oh, okay. So that's not part of her decision. Her decision is based on the instrumentation of the vehicle. What ET does is it attempts to determine your decision strategy by giving you what it has known previously convinces people. Okay, so it has all that historical knowledge, and it's seen somebody who seems very much like you, doesn't know it's you, but somebody very much like you, and it knows that that person was convinced when ET did this. So ET begins doing the same, because you seem very similar. It's going, I'm going to show you this. That convinced you. That's part of her decision strategy. Okay, yep, here's the decision strategy. And now as it interacts with you, it's learned how you make decisions. So it's going to keep on feeding you things that you need to make a decision that the site owner, the property owner, digital property, the property owner wants. And the digital property owner may want you to download a piece of information, share your contact information. The property owner may want you to not be interested in a competitive product. That's a lot of the stuff we do, is kind of reverse marketing. Instead of attempting to brand you on this product, on the client's product, we're going to unbrand you from a competitive product. Now you're wide open. Once we have recognized that you have decided that product's got problems, now we can see. It's very hard to brand somebody if they're already branded. Technically or neurophysically, that space in the brain is already taken up. So we have to unplug that information from the brain before we put new information in. So we determine what your convincer strategy is. We convince you to unbrand. That opens up the brain. And then we look at your decision strategy and we convince you. And we put that thing back in the new thing back in the brain. And that's marketing kicked up a notch, if you will.
So I'm going to ask the question as if I were a digital marketer and as if I were an agency and with their client, because I believe that they've been your clients, that the digital marketing agencies. So you seem to be suggesting that the machine is adapting dynamically, moment by moment, person by person, over a large audience as well. So I'm a digital agency. I've produced an ad. Does it have all this other, the dashboard and the radio and the pretty girl all in that ad? How does ET adapt to the individual and over a large audience?
Well, most companies, most organizations have a CMS, a content management system. So what we do is we tie, if you will, ET to the content management system, and then we work with the company and the agency, whoever, to create content which is specific to what we call a channel. Channel being how people will make a decision, how they get convinced, what they like to see, what they like to hear, so on and so forth. So we will help them craft content for their content management system that falls into all these categories, into those buckets. So now somebody's using their mobile, they're on a digital property, doesn't matter what platform they're on, and ET's picking all this up, and it sends a signal back to the content management system. For that user, you have to make these adaptations. You have to send this content. So it's very much a loop, if you will, a feedback mechanism. You're watching the site, you're doing something on the site, ET picks it up, sends the content management system. The content management system shifts what it's presenting to you.
And that's moment by moment, person by person, through an audience in whatever city that ad is displaying in, or whichever. I mean, a website is easier to understand than, say, a television ad. Or
we've demonstrated it with television ads too. Right now, companies like Comcast, for example, they keep a history of what you, as the viewer, were watching and when. That's traditional Nielsen type stuff. But we've gone well beyond, not we, but the world's gone well beyond what Nielsen used to do. And now it's part of the game, and they will custom feed you an ad. You may have been watching TV and you see the first 2 or 3 seconds of an ad, and then all of a sudden another ad seems to pop in. That's because somebody bought that time for your viewership.
So that's the analytics, and that's where um, algorithms are directing the CMS, the content management system.
Yep.
So where does how does ET change or do something differently than, the latest CMS algorithm driven sort of advertising digital campaign?
Well, ET is communicating to the individual in real time. And it's not basing what it's doing on hundreds of thousands of people that did this. The current marketing algorithms are definitely powerful. I'm not going to say they're not. But this is where, we now call it big data. Well, okay, if you want to call it big data, ET's been collecting data since the 1990s. That's a pretty good storehouse of data that it's looking at. But what it's doing with all that data is saying, what can I do for this person right here, right now? So it is focused on you, and that gets back to our individualization. It's looking at you as an individual, not who you are, not your name, but it's gathering all this information about you to make your life better. I mean, it wants to talk with you. It wants to make you happy. I don't think that's the function of the algorithms of other companies. I don't know that it's not. I just have never seen that in the literature anywhere.
Okay. So I'm a business. I know that I have invested in CMS, and I'm using inputs from maybe Watson. I'm using the latest stuff, and I can see that I'm getting historical data to say my sales are up or my response rates are up, and I can see where they're coming from. I can link them to URLs. But you seem to be suggesting that there's something more going on here.
Yes, and I'm not sure what you're asking.
Okay, so if I were the CEO of a multinational right now with a very, very competent, award-winning digital ad agency, and I just made this big investment, would I see that as an investment that was on top of, in addition to, and what would it yield to me if I made that investment and put ET into the mix now with my digital agency and all the rest of the data management stuff I have?
I guess what ET adds to the mix, here's a very typical thing that blows people away. Traditionally, your analytics group will see, oh, this page is where everybody dropped off. They stopped browsing at this page. Therefore, we need to fix this page. No, that is, to be honest with you, I consider that some of the most foolish reasoning on the planet. People do not stop. They do not see, here's where I had a problem, I'm going to leave. Very few people are like that. They'll have a problem over here, and that problem escalates, and here's where they left. The example I give is when I go to buy a car. Seem to be on cars this day. Anyway, when I go to buy a car, I've seen an ad or I've seen one driving past me. Wow, that's a nice looking car. I'd like to have that. So I go to the dealership, and I want that car. Well, I'm just over 6 feet tall, and I weigh over 200 pounds. And then the phone rings. Hang on one second. Today is my busy day. And because I shut that phone off, they're going to try all my other phones. It's a great day. My apologies. Anyway, so I'm kind of a biggish person. I'm not petite. But the car I really thought was a good-looking car is a small two-seater something sporty. So yeah, I'm walking around the car in the showroom, and I like this car. Yeah, that's a nice car. And I open the door to get in the car. And I'm over 60 years old. My knees don't bend that well anymore. And my hips creak when I get into the seat. And when I do finally get in the car, my knees hit the steering wheel. And this and that. Rah. Well, unless I shrink by about 5 inches and lose 50 pounds, I'm not going to fit in this car comfortably. But I still wanted that car. So I don't get out of the car and say, oh, well, that's it, bye. Walk out of the dealership. I walk around the car a few times. I have to now make a decision. I have to convince myself that this car is not what I wanted. It's the same thing on a digital property. Here's where I realized I couldn't fit in the car. Here's me walking around the car. Here's where I left the dealership. Don't change the page where people drop off. And this is what ET can tell you. This is the page which failed. This page here failed. This, whatever this was, failed. This offer failed. This picture failed. But it took them 2 or 3 more clicks before they said the heck with it. So that's a use that has been traditionally a very useful thing for companies to learn. One of the other things we can offer to companies is, because ET is highly predictive and what it's able to come up with, these people, this group of people, are going to shift away from your product in this amount of time. They are making a decision to go to a new product, and in this time frame. And here's what you need to do to keep them loyal. And what can we do to keep them loyal? Well, one of the other things ET can help you with is, as people are browsing a page, it can tell you whether they believe the price that you're asking is too high or too low, and what the difference is. If it's too high, if it was $5 less, I'd buy it. If it's too low, if it was $5 more, I'd buy it. Because sometimes when a price is too low, people stop buying. They won't purchase unless they, and this goes into a concept which you may have recently read about called fair exchange. I need that price to be where I believe what I'm given is worth what I'm getting. And that gets into neuroeconomic theory and boring stuff. What can I tell you? Did I answer your question, or did I just go off on a real wild riff again?
No, I hope I can keep up. Thanks, Joseph. So in summary, then, you're saying that ET, on top of all the best, latest tools, can help improve specific diagnostics or perform diagnostics.
Yes.
So the digital agencies are really happy with that, because they had everything. They did all their research, they did all of that, and still there are places that buyer behavior is indicating something could be different, and so ET can tell you where and what.
Exactly.
And what to do about it.
Yes.
And so that's on top of all the shiny, great, mathematically based tools that we have today already.
Well, one of the differences that customers have told us, excuse me, is that the majority of tools, all the tools they've encountered, except ours, are rear view. They're like driving down the road by looking in a rear view mirror. If they are predictive, I don't know how they are. I've never seen anything that's reliably predictive. What ET does is it's independently proven to be 98% accurate in making predictions. So, that's up around the level of human cognition.
And in what time period is that predictive part of it?
That was as people were browsing a website.
So in real time,
it was able to predict where they would go and what they'd be looking for.
And then that would feed back into the CMS, and
exactly.
And you'd keep them on the shopping cart, and you'd find another product that was going to get that transaction completed?
Yeah, for example, abandoned shopping carts used to be a big problem. I honestly don't know if they still are online, a big problem. But because ET could sense that the visitor was about to drop or abandon their shopping cart, it would send a signal which would tell the CMS, create a pop-up, if you will, or whatever. I don't know if they call them pop-ups, but create something which said, purchase now and get 10% off. Now, it didn't show that to everybody because not everybody was going to drop the shopping cart. But if ET sensed that this individual was about to bail, it would send the signal, this person's about to bail. And whatever the content management system did was a business rule. We don't actually. It's what the site owner is willing to do. But it's that type of thing. Most often it was, an immediate discount if you purchase now.
So business rules would generally...
I lost your sound. I lost your audio.
All right. Business rules would generally... Are you hearing me now? No. All right. I'm going to stop.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I'm going to hang up.